So this is section 1.6. So let me give you some examples of other types of equations. We have done linear equations. So far we know how to solve linear equations of different types with fractions and then rational coefficients and parentheses, etc. And we know how to solve quadratic equations in several different ways, by factoring and then by using completing the square, by using the quadratic formula, and by using the square root rule. And now we're actually going to do some other different types of equations. Now these are not really new equations. Now all these equations can be converted by a little trick into something that you are very familiar with. So let's look at some of this. So this is a polynomial equation. It has power 3, but don't get scared, right? Okay, when you see it, because this can be easily converted into a familiar equation. So what you do is you always look for a highest common factor. So you can see that x is a common factor of this equation. So you factor x out. When you factor x out from x cubed, you get x squared. Plus when you factor x out from this, you get 6x. When you factor out x from this, you get 5 equals 0. So now if you look at the second piece, this is actually a quadratic which can be easily factored. By how? Because the product of 1 and 5 is 5, and 5 has two factors which add up to 6, which is 1 and 5, right? Okay, and so then the factors are, as we know, we learned before, x plus 1 and x plus 5, and that is those equal to 0. So the product of all three are equal to 0. Then one of them has to be equal to 0. So we say what? Either x equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0 or x plus 5 equals 0. So you get x equals 0 or x equals -1 or x equals -5. You plug these solutions back in the equation and you will actually see that all three of them will work. So that's the answer. So now we'll turn on to different types of equation. And so here's another one. So example 2. So suppose we have something like solve x to the 4 minus x squared, okay, and minus 6 equals 0. Okay, suppose so this is like a fourth degree equation, and that looks a little scary at the beginning, but it's really not that scary, because if you really want to look at it, see, we have x to the 4 and an x squared. So you know what we can do is we can put a little substitution. We call t equals x squared. So if x squared, we call it by another name, say t. Okay, then if x squared is t, then x to the 4th it will be t squared, correct? And then if x squared is t, we just simply plug in t here and you get t squared minus t minus 6 equals 0. Now that is a quadratic. So what happened was we converted this fourth degree equation into an easy quadratic by renaming one of the variables x squared as a single variable t, a substitution as we call in mathematics. So now that this can be easily factored. Why? Because 1 and 6 is -6, and there is the product of -6 which add up to -1, which is -3 and 2. So you get what? So you get t squared t minus 3 and t plus 2 equals 0. So you get t equals 3 and t equals -2. So at this point you might think that that is the answer. No, because we want the answer to be x, because we are trying to solve this equation for x. So not t. We got t equals 3 and -2, but we are close to the answer now, because we know that t is equal to x squared. So what you do now is you just plug in, for t you plug in x squared. So then you get x squared equals 3, which is the same as t equals 3. And t equals -2 becomes x squared equals -2. And then we can solve these two using the square root rule, because it's just x squared equals 3 and x squared equals negative 2. So if you use, now we use the square root rule to solve. So by the square root rule, we know that if x squared equals 3, then x is equal to plus or minus square root 3. At the same time, we know that by this again, by the square root rule, x is equal to plus or minus square root 2. And we know then now this is x is equal to plus or minus square root 3. This is x is equal to plus or minus square root of negative 2 can be written as square root 2 I. Okay, so that's the answer. So there are really 4 solutions for this: plus square root 3, minus square root 3, plus square root 2i, and minus square root 2i. Thanks for watching.